Hi, welcome to this edition of the Selma Sun Center Stage. I'm Cindy Fisher, publisher of the Selma Sun, and I am here with a very important person. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Robert Santos, the director of the U.S. Census Bureau.
And he's based out of D.C. and is here in Selma today and visiting with folks. So tell everybody what you're here doing.
I'm basically here as part of a tour through the United States to talk to stakeholders, to talk to communities, to community-based organizations, to listen to their stories about the 2020 census and what worked and what didn't. We need to have information so that we can plan for the next census, which is in 2030, which might seem like a long time, but it takes a decade to plan for the next decennium.
What do we learn from a census? Like for normal folks, what's the purpose of a census?
Well, the census is the one thing that is written into the U.S. Constitution upon which our Census Bureau is founded. The Constitution calls for a census of the population every 10 years to advance our democracy. And the way it advances our democracy is through apportionment of congressional seats. So we use the counts for the decennial census to decide how many states or how many congressmen are allocated to each state.
But there's other data in there that we can use. What else?
Yes, absolutely. There are basically 10 questions in 10 minutes. And the questions span mostly things like who lives in the household? Is it a family? Is it a couple of individuals who aren't related to each other? It also asks a little bit about the home, what types of things are in the home. But mostly it's about people, because we want to know who people are, how many live in the household, and their age, sex, race, ethnicity, things of that sort. That helps us understand who we are as a nation, and it also helps us with all the other data collections we do at the Census Bureau, because the Census Bureau actually does much more than just a decennial census.
Right, and that's where I think is really interesting, which is why you need the folks to communicate with you and with the Census Bureau. I remember taking the census for 2020 and answering that. I'm divorced, so you have to answer that. And then I've got 2 kids, and I answered that. And how old are they? I remember answering that. I think it's important. Is it like that for everyone, though? Does everyone think it's important?
In general, yes, people think it's important. However, there are segments of our population and society that sometimes can be reluctant to participate in our decennial censuses, as well as our surveys that we conduct that are really important for us to understand who we are as a nation.
I can understand that. So the South, you're here in the Deep South.
Absolutely.
Are we one of those regions that might be a little reluctant?
Well, it's more than regions. It's actually, like I said, different segments of society. So after every census, we do something that basically no other statistical research organization does. We do an assessment where we conduct a survey afterwards, and then we compare what's in the survey to the same households that reported in the decennial, and we look for those that didn't. And it helps us understand who we counted, what types of people were missed, and what we need to do in order to make a better census the next time. And through that process, historically there are undercounted populations like African Americans, Latinos, people on tribal lands, and then more generally folks who are very mobile, like folks who are renters tend to be less counted than those who own a home, and folks like the homeless. And this time around, because of the pandemic, we actually had a big challenge counting college students, because they were in dorms, and then as soon as the pandemic hit and society shut down, the kids went back to the home. Yes. And then where do they get counted? Do they get counted in one place or the other?
Okay,
They're supposed to get counted in their according to their dormitories, but so we had to sort all of that out. It was a big undertaking.
So we're in a rural area
Yes.
right now, and how is the count for rural? Is it hard to
It can be difficult because for a couple of reasons. Rural homes can come in two flavors. The first flavor is the home that has an address outside of it, and the postal service actually delivers mail. Those are much easier to count than those homes that do not have an address on them and are off in the backwoods, and for which you maybe get some larger box that's clustered with a bunch of other homes, almost like a P.O. box, and mail gets delivered there, and they go in. So we use things like satellite imagery and other types of operations to find as many as we can. But because there are homes without addresses, that makes it difficult in rural areas. The other aspect, honestly, is that some people in rural areas do not trust the government. And when they don't trust the government, we can sometimes we ask them to participate, and they decide that that's not something they want to do. If we could only talk to them and tell them the value
So how
of
do
the
you
data.
do that? Then how do you do that?
We do that a couple of ways. The first is through messaging. We use local community groups and work with them as partners to get them to go do outreach to rural areas and to inner city areas, impoverished areas, some of the areas that are much harder to count, and be trusted messengers, so that
idea.
they can explain to their own people in their own neighborhoods the value of having that data and the funding that comes from it, and the ability to do economic development and improve schools and things of that sort.
Yes, people like hearing that.
Yeah. That's one way that we do it. There are other ways too. We do that. We also have, as part of a decennial census, the largest mobilization of a civilian workforce of sometimes 300,000 to 500,000 enumerators span across the country, rural areas, cities, small towns, villages. And if you don't respond, if you don't submit your form, they'll go and they'll knock on your door and they'll ask you to.
How do rural areas do with a door knock?
It can run hot and cold.
I was going to say, I don't know that everybody likes that.
That's true. Some folks, they love the company and they welcome the enumerators. In other places, they can basically say, go away.
So you might get a pie or a pie in your face.
Yes, one of the two.
Okay, I can see that in this community. I can see that. So who have you been meeting with while you're in Selma to look for partners? What kind of groups are you talking to?
We are meeting this time with the Black Belt Foundation, which is a community group that actually does a lot of service orientation in the Selma area, but also ended up being highly valued partners to the Census Bureau in terms of getting the word out as a trusted messenger and helping other community-based organizations get their messages out to their neighborhoods.
Yeah, they give a lot of grants locally.
Yes,
so
they do.
Are patronize or whatever with a lot of groups. We're good friends with them as well, and I do see that they do a lot.
We're looking forward to seeing them. We see them later today.
Oh, good.
And we will send them your regards.
Yes, tell them I said hello. And they do a lot in the community. They live here, they work here, and that's probably the important thing with media that lives here and works here and can maybe convey that message that.
Yes.
I like the idea, going back to the economic development and schools and education. How did the numbers play for funding that we can maybe share with folks to understand that better?
What we strive for is a complete and accurate count. And so to the extent that we can get the count as accurately as possible, then the proportionate, the fair amount of funding then will flow from the federal government to the state, to Selma, and to the neighborhoods for things like schools, free lunches. There's food stamp programs, WIC, Women, Infant, and Children programs, for job programs, and all sorts of things to help the population. And we also include, as part of the broader data collection that the Census Bureau does with our surveys, we have information that helps advance economic development. We have a little tool called the Business Builder that allows people to look at their local neighborhood and find out what types of individuals are there to either be customers or potential workers. If you're building a factory, you can look at the competition that's around, because we mix both economic data and population data.
Ooh, and would that be good for readers?
Yeah, it might be very, very good for that.
And that's one of the things, like us as a small business, and there's a lot of us out here, we don't always know where to go to like tap into some data that helps us as a business grow.
And it's fine-tuned for businesses like yours.
Oh, I
so you
love
should think
this.
about that.
I'm absolutely going to that.
Okay. There's another little tool called the My Community Explorer that allows you to go down either to the city level, the neighborhood level, or something called a census tract, which is a little geography that the census folks use in government. That it's a group of blocks that allows you to understand who lives there and what their conditions are in terms of what's the proportion of seniors, what's the proportion of people who are employed, what's the proportion of people with disabilities, and so forth. So you can understand the needs of your community and help build products and programs to
reach them. I love that. Ooh, I'm an idea machine. That has me going now. Well, a lot of times we all want to know our community. We think we know it because we go to church, we go to school, but it's kind of homogenous sometimes when you're doing that, because they're the same people you see every Sunday and the same people you see at school every day. And maybe the census and the numbers can be something we can use to connect the community a little bit better if we know each other better and know our neighbors. What do you think?
I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, because numbers lead to something. It can be personal.
Absolutely. Numbers they tell a story. They tell us who we are. They tell us where we might need some help, and where we have strength and resources that we can draw from or tap to help the community.
Yeah, I wonder if we use it to get like an Olive Garden or anything. Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Per capita data. What? We need more restaurants.
You can literally build the business case to Olive Garden to say, please come here, take a look at the customer base.
Well, once you get Olive Garden, you've made it. Chick-fil-A would be even better.
Any business you want.
Oh, yes. Okay. I've got some ideas then. Well, thank you so much for being here with us and telling us some more about it.
Literally, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you and your readership and viewers. And we want to help. We want to be a human face to the population. So anytime you need anything, you know who to call.
Yeah, and how can they reach you?
They can reach us on census.gov. Literally,
that's easy.
That's an easy online site. Yes.
And maybe we can slice and dice some numbers and learn a bit more about ourselves.
That would be lovely.
And then we need to fill it out in 2030.
Yes, but remember, every single day of the year, there are over 130 surveys that are going on that are conducted by the Census Bureau, that are national surveys on housing, actually we do a national crime victimization study, the only study in the country that looks at unreported crimes.
Interesting.
And we do that for the CDC. We do a national health interview survey for the CDC as well. We do employment surveys that calculate the current, what do they call it, inflation factors and current price index and things of that sort. It looks at jobs.
So if you get one of these surveys, fill it out.
Please fill it out.
It's helpful. It helps you and us.
Yes, it helps the local community as well as our country. And we are better off when we understand who we are, and that it will allow us to to be a wonderfully diverse country and advance our democracy.
I love it. And
Thank
be
you.
the best people we can be.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Join us for next time.
Bye.